And it's Ken Kraetzer for CBSI Services, coming to you from our nation's capital tonight from the Cannon House office building, where members of the PACE Association concluded their Capitol Hill Summit program by visiting members of Congress, telling the story of the call center industry, reminding members of Congress how many people, hundreds of thousands of people that it employs in communities all across the country, and the service being provided to so many, and asking for consideration of relief or comments on amendments to legislation that's been put in effect in recent years, the Telemarketing Consumer Protection Act in particular, and the rulings that came out last year, which are being appealed by PACE. We understand that there'll be a ruling coming out again in the first half of next year, something they're expecting to see that hopefully will address. And as we talked to Senator Steve Daines of Montana last night, will include common sense reform for the Telemarketing Consumer Protection Act. Good conference. We started off hearing from Tucker Carlson from Fox and Friends. He really hit home. What he sees is the difference between those folks living in New York and Washington and LA versus the middle of the country, which could be a big factor in the election coming up in just now less than 2 months. I heard from Mark Stone from the Federal Communication Commission, who talked about the impact of the complaints they're getting from robocalls. And we heard that also from the Federal Trade Commission. And also the issue of reassigned telephone numbers, how as many as 40 million phone numbers change for Americans during the course of a year. And the issue of calling a phone number that you're looking for one person, it turns out to be someone else who you didn't have consent to call on a cell phone, is a serious issue that both the regulators and the practitioners are trying to solve as best it can be. We heard from Becky Burr of News Star a lot about the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which has been taking enforcement actions against financial service companies, as we've seen throughout the last couple of years. And today we kicked off with a nice presentation from the Federal Trade Commission from Lois Griesman, talking about the mission of the Federal Trade Commission to protect customers and also protect legitimate business practitioners. And she did emphasize the very strong enforcement arm of the FTC in cases such as the one now that's been in the papers for Volkswagen. She said that's resulting in a $10 billion fund that Volkswagen's has been ordered to set up to offer restitution to those affected by business practices here in the U.S. And talked a little bit about lead generation and also buying leads generated for one campaign from another company, sold off to a second company for marketing. And that the company that does that does it at their own peril. So you have to be very careful what your list source is when you're doing a acquisition campaign. And she mentioned very particularly the increase in complaints that they've been getting at the Federal Trade Commission. As many as 600,000 received, a record, she said, in August. So this is something that they are planning to take aggressive action on. And her overall comment, Lois Griesman from the Federal Trade Commission, was illegal practices taint legitimate marketing and legitimate telemarketing practices. So the bad actors hurt it for everyone else that's trying to serve customers in a first-class way. And we had a chance at a good presentation from Alexander Hecht and of ML Strategies and Ken Sponsler of Compliant Point about reasonable compliance monitoring, making a big difference. One thing that Ken Sponsler said, which I agree with and we see all the time in CBSI, is that monitoring and auditing leads to better behavior and better outcomes for the vendors we work with and our clients. And Alexander Hecht, who's got a lot of experience in working on Capitol Hill, said the way to make a difference with members of Congress now is to talk about making a case that better serves customers. They said that's the avenue to take to really have influence with members of Congress about telemarketing legislation. And and they said, just again, by doing an audit, by doing a review, you find mistakes. They said in one campaign where over 600 million calls were involved, they found 300,000 that had some kind of an error. And if you apply a fine to 300,000 errors, that can be a huge fine situation. We had a chance to talk with Nicole Eber, who led the Capitol Hill Day program here, and she's from Quicken Loans, their public policy official, and she talked about the importance of meeting with members of Congress, having a conversation, tell them what the industry is doing, what PACE is doing, that self-regulation is so highly respected by members of Congress so they don't have to enforce and create legislation. And to use PACE, the Professional Association for Customer Engagement, as a resource on matters related to telemarketing, and then also to visit member companies, show members of Congress the jobs that are being provided in their district. And kind of finishing up the program, one of the officials of PACE, Michelle Schuster, is the general counsel. She was with McMurray Peterson Schuster in Columbus, Ohio. I talked about the self-regulation accreditation certification program that PACE sponsors that allows companies and individuals to learn more about what are the requirements of regulators, what are requirements of proper practice on the federal and state level, and to become certified. And companies can do this, and individuals can do this to learn more about how their company is meeting the requirements, and then also to become more knowledgeable as individuals. So Michelle Schuster had a lot to say on that, of the value that PACE provides. So we finished up with the meetings on Capitol Hill, and always great to come over here. And so PACE will have a number of events coming up in the wintertime, and then again they have a meeting in Florida coming up in early April. So that wraps up our coverage of the PACE, Professional Association for Customer Engagement, TPCA Summit in Washington, D.C. So coming to you from the Cannon House office building in our nation's capital, this is Ken Kraetzer for CVSI Services.